Hi, I'm Fred Burton here today with Rodger Baker to discuss the attack on the U.S. ambassador to South Korea. Rodger, you and I have been chatting since the attack in the office about Mr. Kim, the attacker. And what's your thoughts on his background?
Well, Mr. Kim has been an activist in Korea for several decades. He really has a bit of a nativist, pan-Korean ideology that drives him. Looking at old Korea, unified Korea, is kind of his ideal. At times, he has focused on Japan and protested against Japan.
He also attacked the Japanese ambassador, correct?
Yeah, he had a suspended sentence for chucking a rock or a piece of concrete or brick at the Japanese ambassador at one point. He's focused a lot of his attention on Japan's claims on the Korean island of Tokdo. But more recently, he's kind of shifted his attention to the United States as a nation that he argues is keeping the Koreas divided, and particularly with the large-scale military drills that are taking place. He also claims in the past to have actually carried out demonstrations against the U.S. Embassy and U.S. interests in Korea.
I know one of the things we discussed internally was the allegations that there was some North Korean angle or aspect to this. What's your thoughts about that?
Well, the South Korean investigators have laid out that Mr. Kim traveled to North Korea several times about a decade ago. Also that in his possession were North Korean type papers, information about North Korea, things that are somewhat propagandistic. And in South Korean law still, you can possess those, but if you possess those with the interest to promote North Korea or things of that sort, they can hold you under the national security laws. That he has been to North Korea during that time period, it was a time period where a lot of South Koreans were traveling to North Korea. It was a moment where the North Koreans were trying to create a slightly changed perception in South Korea. That he has some sympathies towards the North would seem obvious from his concept of a pan-Korean ideology that he's pursuing. But it really doesn't appear to be something that was driven by, commanded by, instigated by the North, except insofar as the North Koreans have criticized, again, these military drills.
How big do you think his followers are inside of South Korea? Is this a small group?
I think in general he was acting alone. There are other individuals who hold similar types of ideas. He's been part of organizations that again promote these older concepts of all of Korea, and usually they've aimed against the Japanese or against certain modernist elements. So to me, though, I think he was primarily acting on his own. That's what it appears to have been. In a situation like that, though, given your background, how does one prepare for that, and who should have known he was coming?
Well, first and foremost, it's going to be viewed as a protective intelligence failure. And as you look at this in concept, having investigated several attacks of a similar nature in the past, it is the host government's responsibility to protect foreign diplomats on their soil. So at the end of the day, it becomes the South Korean problem to manage the events and to provide whatever they deem to be adequate security. But the fact behind the scenes that this individual had attacked a previous ambassador and appeared to be relatively well known to the authorities, in my assessment, this will be looked at very closely by the State Department to see if there were any balls that were dropped. And in essence, this is a low-threat environment, and you can't protect every ambassador around the world to the levels that we have in places such as Afghanistan or Iraq, and it's certainly not necessary in a location such as South Korea. But whenever you can get that close and attack the symbolic nature of a United States ambassador, it's certainly going to resonate around the world like this attack did. To me, the interesting aspect of this will be, as this unfolds, whether or not the South Koreans pick up other suspects potentially. What do you think?
I don't doubt that they will. Again, the South Koreans' national security laws are still not necessarily draconian, but they certainly give them a lot of latitude to pick up individuals who either, again, are seen as pro-North Korean or maybe a potential threat. And they may use this as an opportunity to round up some of the usual suspects, do another check-in on them, remind them that they're watching them, remind them that they have them under surveillance, to try to dissuade them from any additional action.
Well, appreciate your thoughts on this today, Rodger. That's all we have time for. For those of you interested in more, please visit our website at www.stratfor.com.